This is Teofimo Lopez, the next big thing in boxing, the takeover, and you're listening to the Ringside Boxing Show.
Live from Monterey on California's beautiful Central Coast, this is the Ringside Boxing Show. I'm Dennis Taylor, welcoming you to join me and my expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti, today and every week for the hottest, sweatiest show on the West Coast. And now, from Studio 1A, it's the Ringside Boxing Show.
Welcome to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and we got a guest today who has an opportunity to become, I think, the biggest attraction in the sport in the next couple of years if he keeps winning, because his personality already ranks near the top of any pound-for-pound list. Teofimo Lopez Jr. is going to join us in a little while to talk about his much-anticipated fight with Richard Commey on December 14th at Madison Square Garden. Both these guys are New Yorkers. Teofimo's Brooklyn born and bred. Commey is a native of Ghana who now lives and trains in the Bronx. Teofimo and his dad, Teofimo Sr., are never shy about cutting loose when the lights go on, so you don't want to miss this interview, gang. It's coming up in just a few. Paul McLaughlin, our British correspondent, had some equipment problems today, so we'll soldier on without him this week, but we've got some really big stories to talk to our expert analysts about. Travis Hartman is a professional boxer, trainer, and promoter from Osborne, Missouri. He's now living and training in Orlando, Florida. Rizwaan Zahid is a boxing journalist a bit northeast of us in Toronto. And John J. Raspanti is chief lead writer for MaxBoxing.com and DogHouseBoxing.com. And John is the author of a brand new boxing book, Blood on My Notebook, Dispatches from the World of Professional Boxing, available right now on Amazon. And guys, let's take care of some important business right away, if you don't mind.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, John.
My dream girl, Marilyn. Thank you very much. That made my day. Thank you.
Happy birthday, John.
I will,
Thank you, Travis.
I'll email you that.
Thank you.
I'll email you that MP3, so you got that.
That's great.
I'll
play that for myself here for the next few days. So, thank you.
So, John, in honor of your birthday and also because you're only available for a few minutes today due to your birthday festivities, you get to be the first to break down what you saw Saturday night in the Canelo Kovalev showdown. What'd you think of the fight, man?
Well, as I wrote, it was more tactical than terrific, but it pretty much went the way we thought, that whoever we are that picked Canelo to win, because Kovalev was getting a little love at the end where people were figuring that he would find a way because of his advantages, as we know, in reach and all those factors. But it was a very intriguing fight in the sense that Canelo was moving forward and throwing big hooks and looking to counter, and Kovalev is now the boxer more than the crusher, and for that reason it made it intriguing. And it was close for a number of rounds. I actually had Canelo barely ahead going into the 11th round, Dennis, and I read later that one judge had it even and two had Canelo ahead, I think, 6-94, and I think that's what I had it going into the 11th round. So it was pretty much what we expected. Obviously, Kovalev is not what he was, but see, I've been very critical of Canelo, but I really don't want to take anything away from him. Okay, I know it's calculated. I know he's a businessman. I know what he's doing, but still, that was a risky fight. He got hit with a few right hands, maybe not the big crusher type right hands, but that was a hard fight. You're fighting a guy that much taller than you, and dealing with that, and then trying to get inside, taking chances, and winging those big hooks. And he worked the body over. He stuck to his plan, very disciplined. And so was Kovalev, for that matter. And that's why it was a good professional prize fight. And then the ending was just sudden. As we were saying, Canelo hit Kovalev with a left hook in my article. I said from the dressing room, and it wobbled Kovalev badly. I mean, he staggered like, I can't help this, staggered out. Maybe he does a few bars here occasionally, and then that right hand was just put him to sleep. And it was like, oh, like that when it happened. But overall, good victory for Canelo. And Kovalev, he said nobody wants to fight him. I think Beterbiev, he better stay away from him. I don't want to see that. I never want to see guys that are getting older be put in there against the young, even though Beterbiev's 34. He's a lot younger in a lot of ways. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he's probably figuring that he's could be easily going to jail here with his legal issues. But he made $12.5 million, so that's a nice amount of change to deal with here for whatever happens. And Canelo just moves on. But, yeah, overall, I think it was a good fight. Obviously, somebody said something about fight of the year. And then there were a lot of people saying on social media the fight was fixed. I'm thinking, no.
Yeah.
Okay. People always love to say that about boxing. The fight is fixed. And it's like, come on, man. You don't get knocked cold like that in a fixed fight. Give me a break. Yeah, you know how people are. But good fight. There wasn't this gigantic buzz about it where there wasn't this expectation that it had to be fight of the year. So it was a good, solid, like I said, solid professional fight between two professionals, two real good sportsmen. I love that. Canelo actually hung on the ropes and waited for Kovalev to be okay, because that was a brutal knockout. He was out for a little over a minute, I think, and he was really out of it. And that was very good of Canelo to do that. Good guy, good night of boxing, even with the stupid delay for DAZN did. I don't know what their thinking was on that, but it was a good fight though, Dennis. That's all I'll just say. It was a good fight.
Mm-hmm. Travis, you're a professional boxer. How difficult is it to still have that punching power in the 11th round, number one, and number two? This guy went up to 175 pounds and knocked out a light heavyweight. Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing that he knocked him out at his own weight, 175. I know there was a rehydration clause, but that was 10 pounds. So the fact that Canelo did that to me, I've been on the Canelo train, as you guys know, for the past probably year and a half, 2 years now, and last night was no different. On my pound-for-pound rankings, I think Canelo is now number one, and I don't see how he can't be. He leapfrogged everybody, and I have him number one on my pound-for-pound list with that, because I know that Kovalev was a little bit faded. We all know that he wasn't the same Kovalev as he was when he first fought Ward and lost that close decision. We know that that's not the Kovalev that showed up, that's for sure. But he was still a pretty damn good Kovalev, and he was also a light heavyweight, pretty much fighting a guy that's moved up more or less a light middleweight, which is 154 is more where I think Canelo was more settled and big. And now Canelo moved up from 160, leapfrog 168, and he's right at 175. So it wasn't the fact that he beat him. It was that knockout at the end was so shocking and surprising to me. I was just like, oh, my gosh. And if that fight was fixed, somebody forgot to tell Kovalev. Because if that fight was fixed, he would not have took those punches, because I don't care what anybody says, that was a legit knockout. Kovalev took those punches right on the dang chin. And like I said, if the fix was in, somebody really honestly missed the boat, because they forgot to tell Kovalev, because that poor guy, he went down hard and he stayed down hard. And this is why I'm starting to respect Canelo even more too, is because as soon as it happened, Canelo walked back to the neutral corner and he put his hand up to his mouth and he was telling the crowd to shush and don't cheer yet until they knew things were okay. And like John was saying, Canelo was like really, really cool and collected and didn't celebrate until he knew that Kovalev was okay for the most part. And I found that very, very honorable, very, very respectful, and I like to see that. And I more so like to see that a top guy is doing that, because I do think that there's a lot of younger fighters, but there's a lot of younger amateurs, there's a lot of younger Olympians that are looking up and watching that fight, and it's a good example for them to see that you don't have to be an absolute idiot in the boxing ring to get ratings or to be good. You can be like Canelo, you can be cool and collective, and you don't have to celebrate when a man could possibly be hurt, because let's not make any beefs about it. It's boxing is dangerous. We've seen this year we've lost lives in the boxing ring, and it really is, and these are the fights that that happens. I mean, 11th round knockouts, those are the dangerous ones. Those are legitimately the extremely dangerous ones, and where fighters do lose their lives later on in fights. So I was very, very happy to see Canelo do that, and he capitalized on an amazing night, an amazing opportunity, and I do think that it was a calculated decision, the reason they fought Kovalev. They obviously saw something in Kovalev, but let's not mistake it. Those championship rounds mattered. It was 96-94 and 95-95 on the judges' scorecards. Those last two rounds, the 11th and 12th, they mattered. And I think we don't really talk about that enough, the fact that Kovalev was right there. Like, on the judges' scorecards, that fight could have easily swung either way based on that 11th and 12th round. And that was an extremely closer fight than I think a lot of people expected. I think a lot of people expected Canelo to kind of run away with it, outboxing, move, and all that. And really, the fight happened exactly the opposite way if I thought it would happen. Meaning, I was watching this, Canelo was walking down a light heavyweight who was 3, 4, 5 inches taller than him. Canelo is like a machine right now, and I don't get it. And I don't know where it's come from. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I think everybody could easily throw out the juicing comments right now about Canelo juicing, because he looks like a machine to me, and he's walking these guys down, and he was a smaller guy. Had his hands up, just literally pressed Kovalev the entire fight, which was just shocking to me because he's a smaller guy. I was expecting Canelo to box, to move, to be fast, to have really quick reflexes and all of that, but he just walked Kovalev down and was just eating Kovalev's jabs and countering him, and it was impressive to me. And you guys know that Terrence Crawford is my boy, and I love this guy, and I had him on the top of my list of pound for pound, but I 100% think that Canelo has leapfrogged not only Terrence Crawford, but also Lomachenko. I think, in my opinion, Canelo is number 1 pound for pound on my list.
Okay, Riz, how impressed were you?
I mean, it's hard not to be impressed, right? Regardless of, I think John really hit it on the head a couple weeks ago. Everything Canelo does is very calculated. He's not taking this fight unless he thinks he's going to win, right? And the odds show that 5-1. But he's still going up 2 divisions, essentially. And he still finished with a knockout. To be honest, this fight went exactly pretty much the way I expected it to. I didn't expect Canelo to knock him out, but I expected him to pretty much win rounds 11 and 12 there and get a decision. Kovalev has never really, in all his fights, he's either, even the ones he lost, he was winning those fights, or a lot of people thought he won those fights. First on New Road fight, a lot of people thought he won. The second one, he was ahead on, I think, at least one of the scorecards. A lot of people had him winning. And against Eddie Alvarez, he was winning before he got knocked out. The difference is, with every single one of those fights, the biggest problem we always saw with Kovalev is pacing. And he just can't pace that for 12 rounds. So even he's always suffering the momentum shift. Against Ward in the first fight, Ward probably won the last 6 rounds or 5 of the last 6, something like that, even if you had Kovalev winning the fight. In the rematch, pretty much same idea. Against Alvarez, he got caught, obviously, but, same thing kind of happened. And that's what I expected last night, and that's what was happening. So I'd fully expected Canelo to win round 11 and 12 and secure a decision. I do really fault, I don't understand. I think Sergio Mora, who's, by the way, become a great analyst over the last couple of years, has said that, he's fighting very tactically, and now he's just fighting cautious. And I think that's a big difference I noticed with Kovalev last night. It's hard to be, you have such a size advantage, or theoretically you do, as the bigger man. Mm-hmm. Why would you just try to, you're not going to outslick Canelo. It just doesn't make sense. He was boxing to win on the scorecards, it seems. I never really saw, and I understand why. I understand that, Canelo's throwing something back in return to counter, but you never really leveraged and threw a lot of mustard on one of those right hands. And it's obvious he's not the same fighter he was. I mean, that much is apparent. But I don't really understand what they're, at a certain point, we just saw the momentum shift, and it's just like he was boxing just to try to, make sure he has enough stamina for 12 rounds. And when you're doing that, so like in round 5, that's a problem. And on top of that, Canelo's strategy for most fights is fairly obvious, right? He doesn't throw a lot of punches. In fact, he might throw some historically low numbers. Like, he was throwing like 35 punches around last night. That's below most heavyweights. But all his punches are very methodically thrown. He's always in the best position to throw them. They're always thrown with mean intentions, and is always in a position to land. So that's why his meaningful punches are always what ends up winning him a lot of rounds. And that's, I think, so that's why I didn't understand why Kovalev was just literally throwing it directly at Canelo's guard. You know, the options for Canelo at this point is endless. What really surprised me, you know, usually when guys fight at their natural weight like that, you know, it's different fighting natural weight, just in terms of your speed, your movement, your power, and all those sort of things. Canelo, he seemed fine. I mean, it's, you know, I wish we had unofficial weights. Unfortunately, we've never once seen that in a Canelo fight. I just wanted to see what Kovalev, you know, even Kovalev fights. I was curious what he weighed in his last few fights unofficially on the night of, compared to, you know, the 185 rehydration for yesterday, just to give an indication of, you know, the size difference. But the options for Canelo are endless at this point. And I think you're definitely seeing, you know, I think yesterday was one of those fights where I don't think Golden Boy had any interest in Canelo moving up in weight. And Canelo's a fighter through and through. I mean, that much is apparent, right? He doesn't, you know, you know, Travis, I don't agree with Travis putting him number one pound for pound, just because I think easily he could have had 4 or 5 losses because he's had a lot of close decisions. But that being said, he's also fought all those fights, or a lot of risky fights where a lot of people didn't think he would take them or want them. And that's because Canelo is a fighter. Canelo does want to just fight everyone. I don't think he particularly cares if he had more than 1 loss at this point. I don't think he would approach his career and his fights any differently. But I definitely think this is when you're seeing the trouble with De La Hoya brewing, because Canelo is a fighter. I bet you that he would want to fight Billy Joe Saunders. He would want to fight Demetrius Andrade. I saw a quote that said, you know, sure, I would definitely take on one of the other titleists at light heavyweight, because we all unanimously pretty much agree that Kovalev was the weakest of the bunch, with the new crops of light heavyweights. I didn't expect him to go up and fight the number one guy right away. But based on last night, you know, I don't see why he could not or should not stay at light heavyweight. I mean, it's better to be an animal, a monster, and could oppose complete different problems. Absolutely. But, you know, and despite, you know, Kovalev's chin has definitely been, he went from, because I saw him live in front of me against Jean Pascal, and Pascal has power, Pascal has torque on punches. Kovalev didn't flinch on any of those shots. He doesn't have the same chin he used to. That happens to a lot of guys, especially power punchers as they get older. But Canelo's power is still there at light heavyweight. You know, he still has that almost unexpected speed at light heavyweight. And he's not a, you know, Canelo's never been a stupid fighter either, despite his athletic gifts. So I think he could definitely compete at light heavyweight. But again, and I said this a couple weeks ago, you know, I did find it funny that and I knew this, he was going to have an easier time with Kovalev than he did with Golovkin. Andre Ward, I mean, again, I understand Andre Ward was at 168, but essentially he elected to fight Kovalev over Golovkin. You know, I don't know how those two somehow had you know, shared potential common opponents, but you know, for Canelo, I think the issue is light heavyweight in some ways is, you know, I wouldn't say it could be easier for him, but it could be in some ways, yeah, because you know, out of the 4 guys here, by that I mean Billy Joe Saunders, Demetrius Andrade, Callum Smith, or Sergey Kovalev. As terms of betting odds, I think Kovalev was going to be the easiest victory for Canelo, and I think that's what we saw last night. I think Billy Joe Saunders is still a nightmare, but I do think that Canelo can beat all those fighters. I think he can beat Billy Joe Saunders. I think he can definitely beat Demetrius Andrade, who still hasn't really fought a legit opponent. Callum Smith is the bigger wild card because Callum Smith has the skill and the size too. But Canelo just opened up a whole lot of options. But I think you're seeing here, remember when there was such a delay earlier in the year with what his fall fight essentially was going to be, I think you're seeing now that it was definitely, especially now we're hearing, you know, the animosity with him and De La Hoya, you can see it's definitely the promotion side of things because, you know, Canelo, they wanted pretty much either a Golovkin or Kovalev in the ring with him in the fall. And, you know, the opponents that Golden Boy was trying to pass off, DAZN, and was not really taking it. I don't think Kovalev, you can see yesterday, I don't think Canelo really had a problem with any of those top-tier opponents. Canelo doesn't, I think the Rocky Fielding one last year was kind of a showcase, you know, you're on DAZN now, yada, yada. Canelo wants the best guys. I've never really doubted that. And I think we can go back like 5 years ago when we said, we think he wants Golovkin, but Golden Boy doesn't. I think we're seeing the same thing. So Canelo has definitely opened up options for himself, but I'm curious where he's gonna stay because the funny thing is, if you're looking at Fight Night, I don't think he looked so much bigger yesterday than he does in most of his middleweight fights. Right? He looked in the ring. He looked to me pretty much the same size. So and it's I mean again.
Well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but maybe he was already having that weight to begin with. Maybe he didn't have to cut that much. I mean, he pretty much walked in literally the exact same. I noticed no difference at all in the ring. So, and that opened up a lot of options. So I'm curious where his next step is because going back to 160, usually when guys drop in weight, it's an issue. He doesn't even have to drop because pretty much now he just went from not cutting weight and now he'll have to cut weight. So I don't think it's really going to affect him, to be honest, much at all. It's just curious what he decides to do, and the structure of his contract is also can also be a factor because it's not so much where other guys it's about business and pay-per-views. His contract doesn't really work like that. He's getting the same amount of money regardless. So maybe that means theoretically we'll have a harder style for him. An Andre Billy Joe Saunders. I think Billy Joe Saunders would be the most intriguing fight to him. But I think we can all agree that any fight with Canelo at this point is intriguing. And to be honest, I don't think there's any point of making a Golovkin third fight. Not because there was not controversy for the first two. There obviously was. But we all agreed that the older Golovkin gets, the more, and Canelo just pretty much entered his prime, that those scorecards are just going to get a little wider and wider. Plus, Golovkin, I think at this point, is going towards a Derevyanchenko rematch, which makes most sense, and I think Derevyanchenko deserves it. So I think that chapter is closed, even though it's a very unfulfilling ending. I think we're kind of getting good things out of it, right? Derevyanchenko and Golovkin was a war. We're going to get a rematch. Canelo's opened up options throughout, and I'm curious. I'm very curious who he fights next, and I'm maybe more curious how much input Golden Boy is going to have in it, because I think the less input Golden Boy has on Canelo's fights, I think the better fights we're going to see with Canelo. And we'll see just how great he is, because like I said, I never doubted that he wants to fight the top tier guys. I just think he was kind of limited, and now I think he's taking a little more direction in his career, and because he's getting paid regardless, I think we're more likely to see him in the more style matchup, interesting fights than before, because there's certain guys who have always caused Canelo problems. Slick boxers always have. Rizwaan Zahid and Austin Trout. Canelo Smith and Billy Joe Saunders, for that reason, would be very intriguing fights for him, and I would love to see Canelo in the ring with either of those guys.
John, what's intriguing to me is that Canelo and Oscar are not getting along right now. Usually the promoter calls the shots on the next fight, and the fighter always says that, I have to talk to my promoter and my team to see who we're going to fight next. Who do you think Oscar, Oscar's got a meal ticket here, and he wants to milk it as long as he can. Man, every one of these guys looks dangerous to me. Andre, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Better Beeve, Dimitri Bivol, throw him in, and Golovkin. If you're Oscar, who do you want to see Canelo fight next?
He probably wants Canelo to fight Golovkin again next. Canelo surprised me a little bit last night when he said that it's business, and if it happens, it happens. He didn't say no outright like he's been doing. So I think he probably is thinking, like all of us, that, it's no challenge, like I keep saying, and I can beat him basically in my sleep now because he's not the same, and I'm probably better than I was when we first fought. So there might be that. But, yeah, there's a definite tension between him and Oscar De La Hoya. It's obvious. Even when they were standing in the ring, you could see it. I think he doesn't want anything to do with Oscar anymore. He used to admire him, but you saw from that interview that he just tore him up and said he's disloyal and everything. But, Oscar De La Hoya, who we all have criticized for some of the things he said and some of the things he's done, he hasn't exactly done a bad job with Canelo. I mean, as far as building his career and everything, he hasn't done a fantastic job, but he hasn't done a bad job either. Now, I don't want to give all the credit to Oscar. I'm sure Eric Gomez has been very involved in that, and Canelo too. But there's a loyalty thing, and suddenly it's not like Oscar just became disloyal. I mean, when Canelo got with him, he knew Oscar's history of changing trainers and all those, and when he was a fighter, and that isn't exactly a bad thing. But he sees it as a disloyal thing because he's been Eddie Reynoso and his dad since he was 15, and I admire that. I love loyalty, so that's fantastic. So the tension between those two, though, you could cut it with a knife. I mean, we at the press conference, it's almost like if you've ever known someone you don't like and you have to sit next to them and you're sitting a foot away from them, you're like, it's way too close, man. I'd rather be on the other side of the room. And that's the feeling I get. So it's like, God, that's got to be terrible. But I think Canelo's just going to give his view on what he wants. And who's going to tell him no at this point? I mean, he's the guy, right? He makes $35 million a fight. He's the number one guy. We don't even call him Alvarez. We all call him Canelo. I mean, that tells you how big he is. He's the star of boxing. So we all know him. If we say Canelo, we know he's almost like Elvis in a sense as far as the boxing thing goes. You don't have to say Canelo Alvarez. You just say Canelo. We all know. So, that whole thing. I think Oscar was very excited when Ryan Garcia scored that first-round knockout, and I think possibly he's thinking, well, since I just signed Garcia, I believe, to extended his contract, at least I don't know the particulars of Canelo's contract with Golden Boy. Maybe Riz knows, but he figures, look, if Canelo goes, at least I got Ryan Garcia, who's kind of surprising because Ryan is really good friends with Canelo, I believe, and you think he'd go wherever Canelo goes, but who knows? Maybe Canelo said, look, just hang with, you're only 21, just hang with Golden Boy for a few more years, and then I'll promote you. You know, I mean, I'm 31, 32, whatever I'm doing, I'm still fighting a little bit. I'll promote you and then promote you more, but it's just amazing. Even though they're trying to act like they're okay, you can see it. There's definitely a big problem between them, and Oscar's got to understand. I mean, he had problems with Bob Arum and everything, and he got mad at Bob Arum, and they broke up. So this happened, but it just made me shake my head. I'm thinking, boy, just a few years ago, they seemed like they were good friends. That Canelo, Oscar would come into the gym, and Canelo would greet him, and they'd hug. Now it's like, nope, buddy, you're there only because you have to be. And other than that, I really don't want anything to do with you. So that's pretty much how I see it.
Travis, you know what? There are about three different echelons of great fighters. There's a Hall of Famer, there's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and there's an all-time great. You look at Canelo's record, man. He fought Shane Mosley, Floyd Mayweather Jr., Rizwaan Zahid, Miguel Cotto, Amir Khan, Liam Smith, Chavez Jr., Golovkin twice, Danny Jacobs, Kovalev. Where's he going to fall?
Yeah, I know there's going to be a lot of Mexicans that get mad at me, but I think that Canelo is going down as probably one of the best Mexican fighters of all time. And I mean that
all-time great
resume that I think he's got to be in the talks. I mean, he's still fighting, and he's. Here's the thing: in my opinion, he's already in the talks. He's just now. We're all agreeing on the show that he's just now really hitting his peak. So the fact that we're already talking about that, and the fact is that he's already fought all of those guys you just named, who are some of them will be first ballot Hall of Famers, it's absurd to think that. But I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe you have to give Golden Boy some of this credit because somebody has brought me around on Canelo because I did not used to be a fan. A couple of years ago, I did not used to be a fan of Canelo. I didn't like much about the guy or his whole entire career, but now I'm looking back and his body of work, and he was fighting guys when I remember that it wasn't so hot to fight Rizwaan Zahid. I don't know why they fought him. Still to this day, I look at it, and they didn't need that fight. That was a difficult fight. That was a fight that even if he won it, not the average fan would really care. And it was I really didn't know what the benefit was. And Canelo's had a lot of those fights. And now I'm looking back, I'm just thinking, you know what? Just Canelo's a throwback. I think him personally, I think he's a throwback, meaning he will fight anybody. And that's what I'm starting to respect about Canelo because I know sometimes Golden Boy, and when I say Golden Boy, I more mean Oscar, kind of gets in the way of that sometimes. And maybe that's why I wasn't really a big fan of Canelo early on because I don't think Canelo had much of a voice. So mostly all I ever heard and seen probably was Oscar talking. But now I'm kind of going back and looking at things and thinking about it and being like, you know what? I think Canelo's been this guy the whole time. Canelo's always wanted to fight the best, and he didn't care who it was, where it was. He always wanted to do that. But I think Oscar probably got him into a lot of beefs, got him into a lot of it looked like Canelo was ducking people, blah, blah, blah. But end of the day, I think Canelo's one of the most talented guys out there. I think that his defense has gotten so much better than it ever was. I think it's very underrated in the past couple of years, especially when he started fighting Golovkin. I really started noticing his defense was just phenomenal. His reflexes, his slipping, his everything. And like I was saying, I was talking to some people on Facebook, and after this fight, I was like, his defense is underrated. Look at Canelo's face after all of his fights. He's barely ever marked up. And that's impressive, because I've been in many fights where, at 5-6 rounds, and I won. Even then, I still got some little marks on my face. And this guy's going 10 and 12 rounds with the elite, and his face still looks good. And for the most part, some of those punches look like they hit, but he's just got this little quick reflexes and these little quick movements that are making those punches just slide off. And I'm gushing over Canelo because I think he's legit. I think I don't see anybody out there at this moment that can beat him. And that's at 175. Maybe is a different story. I mean, maybe if he stays up there, better be even all of those guys. That's tough. They're young, hungry lions, undefeated. They can punch. They're obviously a couple of good weight classes bigger than Canelo. But who knows, man? The guy's a beast, and it would not shock me one bit if we see Canelo still take on one of those guys. And I think it's crazy. I think Canelo, I think it's going to be hard for him to go back down to 160, which is middleweight. I mean, that's 15 pounds south, and I think that's where you see a lot of historic problems occur when these guys go up and they try to go back down. I mean, a perfect example is Roy Jones Jr. when he went up to heavyweight. He tried to come back down and end up his whole career ended up being totally different. I mean, Antonio Tarver knocked him out, and then he looked like a shell of himself completely after that. So I think that everybody has seen that, and I hope that the Canelo Alvarez's team and Golden Boy have learned from that. I would be shocked. I would be really shocked to see Canelo if he ever goes back down to middleweight. That's 160, and that just seems like, it doesn't seem like a lot, maybe to a lot of people, but I know as boxers, he's weighing 175. Canelo will probably win in that ring well over 180. For sure over 180. I think it couldn't be over 185, what was the rehydration thing, but Canelo's a big guy. He must carry his weight just differently because he's getting stockier now. He's getting more filled out, and by all means, he turned pro when he was 15 years old, I believe it was. So, by all means, the guy, he was growing into his body, all the way mostly through his career even. And it's crazy enough how old he is. He's still kind of growing into it and getting thicker and more mature of a man, and his body, it's showing. So, if he goes back down in weight, that would be scary to me because I think that he might have some issues. But, again, there's not much at 160. There's nothing really at 168 probably. So 175 may be where he needs to be as it is. So maybe he will stay there. Who knows? But the way he impressed me, and again, we all know Kovalev not necessarily was the best light heavyweight. That dude, whether we would have been right, that same Kovalev that fought last night, in my opinion, he could still compete with all the other 175. Compete. Maybe not necessarily beat them, but I think he competes with them. And maybe not beat them, but I think he still competes with them. Even I wouldn't say he's a shell of who he was, but he's no longer the crusher, that's for sure. But I think he competes with those guys still, not necessarily beats them. But you know what? It's always fun to see all this happen too, because I don't think Kovalev's going to retire. I want to see what Kovalev is like post Canelo Alvarez. I want to see him. He's going to fight one of these other top guys at 175. It's going to happen. I just don't see Kovalev going off into the sunset with this. I just don't. I think he's going to come back in and try to fight a couple of these guys, and that's what's going to give me even more of an appreciation for what Canelo did, to see how Kovalev is after this. What if Kovalev comes back, guys, and somehow beats one of these guys, or loses a really, really tough, a tough 12-round decision? Then I think we're all going to be like, oh my gosh, maybe Canelo is that legit. So we'll see. Only time will tell, I think. But I'm impressed either way. But I want to see what Kovalev does after this to see if he can compete with these top guys. And I want to see where Canelo's going to go. Is he going to go up? Is he going to go down? If he goes down, how much is he going to go down? Because that can have a major effect on his career. So we'll see.
One more thing about this fight. Riz, you and Travis are on the East Coast. This fight started after 1 a.m. I think the ring walk took place at 1:20 a.m. on the East Coast to avoid competing with the UFC show. And, I mean, they also made fans wait 90 minutes after the semi-main event. Considering the size of that East Coast audience, this seems like a decision that should get somebody fired or demoted at DAZN. You have to wonder what percentage of the audience just gave up and went to bed. Was it tough for you to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning to watch this thing?
Some weird night shows. So for me, not so much. But I do think that I think they probably took into account a lot of the daylight saving times that's happening in the East Coast, and I give people an extra hour of buffer. I also think what's a little strange to me is because they, I understand they're waiting for the UFC fight to be done, but they're not both airing on DAZN. Another thing is the whole advantage of DAZN is you can go back and watch a fight any time, right? If you miss it 5 rounds in, you can rewind 5 rounds, and then just catch up. So I didn't really understand. Yeah. I think they kind of forgot how their whole platform works. So I think that was kind of definitely a missed opportunity for them. And there's something they could have probably fixed themselves. But that surprised me a little bit, especially we're not talking about a wait time of 20 minutes instead of 10 minutes, right? We're talking about the other fights were all done. We're talking about like a good hour plus wait, and that would seem very unnecessary. So, I understand when there's another event going on and you don't want to go head to head. That doesn't make sense, but not when your whole platform is designed to be on demand anytime, right? That's the whole advantage of it. Now, I don't know how it works with ratings and that sort of thing, but I mean, if you think of it from a subscription service, that's the whole point of it, right? You can watch the UFC fight, the boxing fight's already done, I can rewind it 5 minutes later. That's the whole advantage of it. So then people are not picking one or the other, and that way you're promoting your fight on DAZN. That's the whole advantage of it. So I think they dropped the ball with that one. I don't think they fully thought that one through.
You know what, Dennis? I find something fishy going on with that, because the fact is DAZN also plays and has its own kind of an MMA network on there as well, and they're in competition with the UFC. So that's why I thought it was a little weird. Like, is there something going on there? Is Dana White maybe trying to team up with DAZN? Is something
I don't think
going
so.
on?
I don't think so, because ESPN just recently got the UFC rights not too long ago, like maybe a little more than a year. And from what I understand, their partnership is pretty alive and healthy and well. So I don't think that's the case.
You're DAZN, though. You have the star of pay-per-view right now, which is Canelo. You could crush out the competition. I would 100%. If I'm competing with them, I'm running Canelo. I'm taking away their ratings because people were tuned in to watch Canelo last night.
Maybe that's the thinking. Maybe actually, you know what? So maybe they weren't actually. Maybe they weren't trying to take away. Maybe they weren't going to take away their ratings because they understood that people would watch the UFC fight anyways, and then could watch on DAZN after. I just don't see. I mean, my thinking is this: instead of worrying about what other, I mean, I'm not going to worry about what the NFL numbers are like today if I'm a certain sport, right? The whole advantage of having your platform on DAZN is on demand, rewind anytime. If you want to rewatch a round, you can do that anytime. So I don't know whose call that was. That's what's curious. I don't know if that was. Sorry, yeah, I don't know if it was someone within. Someone within like the arena or something like. I don't know what happened there, and I don't know if
maybe somebody's got interest in both. That's the only thing that I can think of, because that's a lot of money, and somebody maybe has interest in both, and I find that something's off there, because most competitors, they want to stamp out their competition. Last night, you let them live. You let them breathe.
Well, that's the thing, but I don't know if that's the competition. Maybe from a DAZN entire standpoint, yeah, UFC and Bellator are competitors, but it doesn't, this wasn't Bellator and UFC going head-to-head, right? This is a different sport going head-to-head. And again, because of the platform being able to rewind.
ESPN Plus is the same thing. It's the app that just got created by ESPN. Those fights were streamed on ESPN Plus, which is an app that I actually subscribe to as well. I subscribe to DAZN and ESPN Plus, but they're two very, very similar apps that do the same thing. So that's why I don't understand it.
I don't know.
Fishy with all that.
I mean, funny enough, there was a boxing link, because in the main event, Jorge Masvidal, he walked out with Roberto Duran, out of all people. Which was funny. But I don't know. It just seems strange more than anything else. I mean, the whole advantage of having on demand. I mean, I think sometimes, and goes for all TV networks and all these kind of companies, they forget that the fan is the one who benefits, and the fans are the ones who call the shots, right? Both good and bad. If you make it easier for them, both sports can do well, right? Like, the idea of sports fans is they're not going to pick one sport or another, right? They're going to watch both sports. So if it's on demand, why does it matter, right? I don't know. And in terms of advertising and all that stuff, it doesn't really have an effect because it's a subscription service, right? So it really didn't make a lot of sense to me, and I'm curious. Here's one possible. Like, the guy who runs DAZN is the former boss of ESPN, who kind of got phased out of there. So that's potentially the only link I can see between the two. But again, that seems like an odd request coming from the top. So I don't know if we'll get more on this, but it didn't really make a lot of sense to me, and I don't think it benefited anyone.
Can you guys imagine them telling Floyd Mayweather that he has to wait to go out after he's already warmed up? Because that's what they did to Canelo and Sergey Kovalev. They were like, hey, you guys got to wait. I cannot see a Floyd Mayweather putting up with that. And I think we're going to see a little backlash down the road, because I think it's going to get hyped up a little more, that this is something that's going to be brewing, I think. I think we'll pay close attention to it. But I don't know. I find it weird because the fighters were warming up already and they were told they had to wait. And I find that weird.
Wow.
A major athlete like Canelo, he is the face of boxing. I can just see some people in Canelo's team. I can even see Oscar. This getting back to Oscar and them really starting to think about, oh my gosh, they really put us on hold and put us down for the UFC. I don't know. I just think this could be a story that we probably should pay really close attention to, because now the more we talk about it, the more head-scratching it really does seem to me, because I can't see them ever doing that to a guy like Floyd Mayweather, telling Floyd he's got to wait for a UFC fight. I think Floyd would have had a fit, and I don't even think they would have tried to ask Floyd. So it makes me wonder why they felt comfortable enough to tell Canelo, hey, you got to wait. We got to wait a little bit. So maybe there's more development to this story, but we'll see.
How tough is that as a fighter to warm up and then be told you have to wait and then warm up again?
I think it's extremely tough, because I fought back in the day. They used to have ESPN undercard fights, and they would have what we called swing bouts. They don't necessarily do that much anymore. And a swing bout was, if there's an early knockout, they threw you on. And I had to do that in Florida once. I was ready in the locker room at 7 p.m. for a fight, and I didn't end up going in the ring until midnight. And when you're in once you get gloved up, you can't unglove, you can't leave the locker room, nothing. So from 7 p.m. to midnight, I was gloved up, couldn't unglove, couldn't leave the locker room, had to stay inside of the commission, and that could be a problem, a big problem. For me, that was. And for Canelo and them, they're warming up for 12-round world title fight. The mental part of all of that and the physical part of all that definitely throws you off. I mean, they're both true competitors, so they obviously dealt with it, and at the end of the day, you obviously roll with those punches because sometimes that can happen, but you worked your butt off to be a guy like Canelo Alvarez. You've worked past that stuff. I'm an undercard fighter. I'm a swing fighter. That's normal. He's a main event fighter. And that's the part about being a main event fighter is you know exactly what time you are going on. They come in that locker room, they have a time for you. This is the exact time you're going on, no matter what. Even if there's an early knockout, we're going to stall, we're going to run whatever else. You are not going in the ring until exact 9 o'clock, 9:05. That has it on your door. Things like that for TV fights, for the main event fighters. So no matter what happens, you know when you're going on. And that's because you've busted your butt and you've worked your butt off to get to that point now that you know exactly when to warm up, you know when to time your warm up, you know when to time everything because you know exactly when you're going in the ring. So I find it hard to believe that Oscar and everybody else isn't saying much about this. So I'm definitely going to be reading up and watching and looking out because this is, I think, going to be a little something going on. I just find it hard to believe that nobody's talking about this enough right now.
Well, just something else to note, actually, Dana White did come out and call De La Hoya a scumbag, which is pretty much a routine thing, I think, every weekend at this point. Those two definitely don't like each other. So maybe that was it. Maybe it was just more pettiness on De La Hoya to try to throw a curveball into you. I don't know what the case is, but
well, he helped him.
Well, De La Hoya is not exactly. He doesn't always make the smartest decisions. But it is funny that it's crazy how people who run certain sport really just don't understand what the hell the fans want. And if you're not doing what the fans want, then I don't understand what are you doing, what you're doing for. It's amazing how many TV networks and sports companies and commissions and all these things, they assume what the fan want without actually understanding what the fan is looking for. The fan doesn't want to watch one sport or the other. The fan wants to watch both. And one way or the other, they're going to end up watching both. Whether they choose one live and watch another one later, even if they do that, you know, if they're watching the other one later, you're not losing, right? Like that's what you know, that's what a lot of these kind of big wigs don't understand, and you know, the pettiness of a lot of them. And again, a Dana White, Oscar De La Hoya personal pettiness might have come in the way of delaying a fight like this for an hour. I don't know if that was the case. I'm just saying that it's stuff like this that makes sense. And you know, like Dennis said, how many people are probably just like, you know what, this is late. I'll get to bed and I'll watch it in the morning, or whatever the case, which is what I was thinking of doing when you guys messaged me. And then I forgot about the hour daylight, you know, the daylight saving times. I'm like, all right, fine, I might as well tune in. But I mean, that I'm sure, you know, for the guys who have young kids and have to wake up early in the morning, or for the women who have to look after kids early in the morning, you know, they're not, if they're going to be up at 6 or 7, they're not waiting for 1 o'clock for a fight to start, especially when it's totally unnecessary. So it just seems like a big, stupid mistake more than anything else. And they can't allow that to happen again. I'm curious it's hard to get ratings, I guess, for an online subscription. But, you know, especially when, you know, you had Canelo there. I understand if you had Joe Schmo fighting against, you know, when a big UFC pay-per-view is going on, if you want to delay for that reason. Yep. Canelo is arguably the biggest fighter in the sport right now. So if that's the case, and yeah, I know Kovalev doesn't maybe move the needle for the average fan, but if people were to walk in and watch Canelo, like Jorge Masvidal, I think his parents might be, I feel like his parents, or Nate Diaz, I guess, you know, I guess maybe they're trying to cater towards a Mexican American base to watch both fights. But again, it still doesn't make sense because they're still able to do that. So it's about time that, I don't know what it is, to be honest. I just seemed like whatever solution they were kind of trying to come up with, it seemed like perhaps the worst solution possible, because all it did was screw people's schedule up, and all it did was probably make people tune out of the fight and maybe just wake up in the morning and get the news of the result rather than going and watching it.
Yeah, you know what, Dennis, you're right. It did, because I remember last night I was watching Andre Durrell, a professional fighter. He was complaining, and his last Instagram story was, "I'm going to bed, screw this," and he hadn't had a story until the next day. Wow. So I think he did go to sleep. So, I mean, I could see a bunch of people getting mad about that. Me, I'm a diehard boxing fan, so of course I didn't. But I do think it turned off a lot of other fighters. And I mean, Andre Durrell, by all means, is a big boxing fan. But he made a good point, and so did Riz. Andre was like, hey, I have to get up early. I have to take my kid to a baseball game or something. I can't remember what he said. He's like, I'm going to bed. So since a lot of people did have things to do the next day, and I mean 1 a.m. that's pushing it. You know, that they really pushed it, and UFC better be thankful. And there's something for going on for this. They literally pushed a TV time for that. It just blows my mind. I'm just in shock. I think still, and the more and more I think about this, that the fact that we pushed a fight time for a UFC fight. And by the way, for a UFC fight. Yep. For a UFC fight, that both of the guys in the main event, they had double-digit losses, by the way, you guys. If you look at their records, they both have over 10 losses. Oh. Look at their records. Tell me that's not crazy, too. It's not like they were pound-for-pound best.
I mean, you got to. I'm not saying devil's advocate here because MMA. Well, no, but boxing will have 20 fights.
Look at Magnomedov or like all those guys. That guy's undefeated, 20, 28, 29-0. So like records do matter in MMA as well.
Yeah, but those are the newer crop of MMA fighters, right? Those are the newer crop. Where boxing guys will fight, you know, bums for 20, 30 fights and then kind of get a title shot. And MMA, a lot of these guys are, you know, these guys are pro and within 5 or 6 fights are getting a title shot. So. And I'll say this, MMA, they don't treat losses as the end of the world, where boxing has, and that's been a problem with boxing, and that's why guys will fight 20, 30 fights. So I don't think that that was a factor, to be honest. Like, that's not the way the MMA and UFC fans approach, like, oh, he has, you know, X amount of losses, that means he's not a good fighter. It doesn't translate the way it would in boxing. Where boxing, you know, you'll see a guy who's 25-10, and you'll never watch him in a fight, right? You'll never get a main event spot. It doesn't work the same way in MMA. But you know, and
maybe
there was a lot
pro
of
boxing's making more money than MMA fighters because of that very reason, though.
Well, I think the other thing is I think there's more boxing fighter empowerment, and even though that caters towards some crazy disorganization, that's why you have guys like Canelo who said, you know what, Oscar, I don't have to listen to you anymore. right? And that's what, and funny enough, that's what Oscar did. And that's what, that's what Floyd did with Arum too. And then you get other guys who are just complete opposite, who've been stuck in contracts, right? Arthur Beterbiev, he was stuck in a contract with Yvon Michel for a good 2 years, right? He had one fight with DAZN. He said, you know what, this is not for me. And he signed a top rank. And now people really know about him, right? I mean, I've known about him for years because, he's fighting in Montreal and all that. But, I mean, there's a lot of guys who are on those kind of, I wouldn't say slave contracts, but a lot of very difficult contracts that they want to get out of when they're not getting fights. I'll say that about UFC. A lot of these guys will never have trouble getting fights, right? These guys can easily fight 3-4 times a year. A lot of boxers, some of them don't want to fight that much, and some of them really want to fight more. So and that's what I'm saying. It's not the same sport. So therefore, it's not competition, right? It's not, Super Bowl, the NFL is different. The NFL's audience is captivated, right? There's a reason, other sports should not go head-to-head with NFL, and no other sport ever goes head-to-head with the Super Bowl because it's just stupid to do so, right? Outside of that, especially when things aren't available on demand, this stuff doesn't matter. And that's why I don't understand whose decision this was and what the thinking was. All I know is tomorrow morning it's Monday, and I wish I was a fly on the wall in the DAZN boardroom, because I'm curious what the explanation was for this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to mention two other things, and you guys don't need to even comment on them if you don't want to. But Chris Mannix is reporting that Adrian Broner punched Tank Davis outside Canelo's dressing room before the fight. He says it was a huge punch, and then Broner also hit Gervonta's PR guy with a haymaker. Broner's a guy who needs to wear an orange jumpsuit for a while, I think. And Gervonta should sue him, because if he'd been cut or injured, his fight with Gamboa would have been canceled. And the other thing that happened this week, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. blew off his drug test and got temporarily suspended by the sanctioning body. His fight with Danny Jacobs is probably off. Man, what a disappointment this kid must be to his legendary father. What a waste of talent that he's been. Okay, on to the final subject here. This Saturday, Nonito Donaire versus the Monster, Naoya Inoue. Who do you like? This to me is like don't miss it and don't blink. Who do you like, and who's going to win this one, Travis?
Well, I mean, who do I like? I really like Nonito Donaire, but who do I like to win the fight? Not Nonito, and I just pray and hope that he doesn't get hurt. And that's kind of where I'm at with that one. I don't even think this is an easy prediction, in my opinion. I just think he's a monster. Inoue is a monster, and that's his nickname even. And it's good riddance, because most people are considering Inoue as a pound-for-pound top fighter in the world. So, I mean, Nonito is amazing. Nonito has had a Hall of Fame career. But can he beat this guy? I don't think so. I don't think he has enough. I honestly not sure that Nonito could beat this guy when Nonito was in his prime. That's how good I think this guy is, and that's how good I think a lot of people are thinking Inoue is. So it's going to be a good fight. I mean, for the fans, you're probably going to see a vicious knockout, because that's what happens with Nonito Donaire. He will go out there and he will lay it all on the line. He will try to knock this guy's head off as much as he can before he gets his knocked off. So it's going to be a good fight to watch for fans, but if you're a really big fan of Nonito, I don't know if it's going to be a good one to watch, because I think he might definitely get a devastating knockout against him. So that's where I'm at on that one, and I'm going to be paying attention close to it, though, because it will be a good fight.
Okay, Riz, you kind of think this was underappreciated a little bit.
More than anything else, I think the fighters themselves are underappreciated, especially Inoue. Inoue a monster is the most accurate name I think I've seen for a boxer for a really long time. It is very difficult for smaller fighters to really gain traction, and you don't really see as many one-punch knockout artists from the lighter divisions. Even back in his heyday with Eric Morales and Barrera, these guys didn't really usually have one-punch knockouts, right? They were fan-friendly, entertaining, and they used to get great finishes, but they weren't like Inoue, who would literally he destroys guys, right? I mean, his last 4 fights or something have been a combined like 5 rounds, and 3 guys have never been knocked out before or knocked down before. It is a little insane. That being said, Donaire, it's funny because he's had some luck to get here. He had an injury, Ryan Burnett, who's now retired, and I think it was Tete who got injured before the fight, so he fought a fill-in. So, it's funny, Donaire's got the easiest path ever to a tournament final. And we know Donaire has power. There's one thing he does have. And he is a physically bigger guy, too. So, I mean, a one-punch knockout, a puncher's chance is, if it ever applied to anyone, I think it's Donaire in this fight, because we haven't seen Inoue take a shot. He hasn't had to. But it is, Inoue is, to me, he's a real deal. And I think he's one of the most underappreciated guys. I think a lot of the, when you talk about the pound-for-pound rankings and all that, I think so much of it is linked to TV exposure too, right? How much, the way people rate Crawford and Lomachenko. I mean, it's no coincidence, and even tossing Canelo or Golovkin or any of the other guys, it's not a coincidence that these guys have huge TV or promoter contracts in North America specifically, right? There's, if you talk about, I think it's funny if you go to Europe and you ask boxing fans, they'll give a completely different list, just because I think they're a little more surrounded with the international scope of boxers. And that's why in Europe, guys like Usyk and Lomachenko have been lingering on that list for a while longer. I think Inoue is the same way. Winning one of these tournaments is no joke. And especially with Inoue, who's spent a combined like 3 rounds, it's a little ridiculous, actually. So I'm expecting a pretty big Inoue performance. Donaire's only been knocked out once, and it was against Nicholas Walters, who was significantly larger than he was. And Donaire, still managed to hurt Walters. So for if Inoue stops Donaire, I'd be very, very impressed. I don't know if he does. Inoue has been the distance a couple times when he needed to. I think this is one of those fights where because as far as Inoue, he's a crazy power puncher, but he's also an intelligent boxer. He's not a guy who just wings shots and prays for a knockout and hopes one of them lands. I think Inoue is going to. I think he's going to be a little. I wouldn't say cautious, but I think he's going to be more intelligent. Maybe the knockout comes later, but I don't think it's going to be. I don't think he's going to try to turn into a war, just because I don't think he has to. I think he'll take advantage of, when all things are equal, you're going with a younger, fresher guy, and in this case, it's the younger, fresher guy, and I think at this point in his career, he's the one with better skills too. But it's weird. It's a weird time to be on a Thursday and all that, but. And usually those fights don't gain the most amount of traction in North America, but Inoue is a name that we definitely want to see more of in the future, and hopefully it'll end up going the way Usyk's path went when he wins the Super 6 and then he gets kind of rewarded with a big contract, and we're going to see him a lot more. I'm hoping the same thing happens with the winner of this fight, especially if it's Inoue, and hopefully we'll see him on Matchroom or Top Rank or something else soon enough.
Man, oh man, what an interesting sport we cover. That's the truth from Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and the rapidly decomposing John J. Raspanti. Teofimo is just a few minutes away. Thank you, guys. Have a great week, and happy birthday, JJ. See you later, guys. Thanks.
See you guys.
This is Bubbles, your ring card girl, and I just love listening to Travis, Riz, and John on the Ringside Boxing Show. And Dennis, not so much.
What are you doing?
I'm Dennis Taylor, co-author of the Amazon bestseller Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy. Writing this book was a labor of love for John J. Raspanti and myself. We enjoyed every minute of the process and considered it a privilege to tell the tale of one of the most electrifying boxing trilogies in the history of this sport. Intimate Warfare traces the collision course of Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward from their earliest days through their 3 epic fights, as well as the aftermath of this great rivalry, which culminated in one of the greatest friendships in boxing. Intimate Warfare has received a 4.5-star rating from readers and was endorsed by Hall of Famers Harold Letterman and Joe Cortez and 2-time Trainer of the Year Virgil Hunter. Our foreword was written by Ray Boom Boom Mancini, another one of the greatest blood and guts fighters of our time. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
Welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor with John J. Raspanti, and we are excited for the opportunity to connect again today with one of the hottest young stars in boxing, Teofimo Lopez Jr., who is scheduled to fight Richard Commey on December 14th at Madison Square Garden for Commey's IBF lightweight title. Teofimo's a Brooklyn native, just 22 years old, 14-0, 11 knockouts. Commey's 32 years old. He's a native of Ghana, but he's living in the Bronx. 29-2, 26 knockouts. Won his IBF title in February with a TKO of Isa Shaniev, and successfully defended it in June with a knockout win over Ray Beltran. Teofimo, always good to talk to you, man. Welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show. How you been?
I've been great, man, like a champ, and I'm excited, man. Hey, you guys, it's good to be back.
You bet.
You bet.
Yeah, so how's training camp going for you?
Oh, training camp is going great, man. We're doing camp here in New Jersey. A lot different from the last camps that we've had. The camps that we've had before have been always in Vegas. This time around, we switched it up. And since I moved back to Brooklyn, I decided to do camp in New Jersey, and it's been great. We have my father as the head coach. We have new staff. Assistant coach Joey Gamache. And then, so it's been good. I've been having a great time here, man. I've been just happy about things, and I can't wait, man. December 14th is definitely going to be one that everybody should definitely watch.
I didn't realize Gamache was working with you now. What's he bring to the table for you? He was a great fighter.
Sure was.
No, what he does, he just basically pretty much, he'll see things the same as my father. They watch film together. They've been watching Richard Commey together a lot. There's things that my dad will have to, there's things that my dad needs to learn, I learn, and there's things that Joey Gamache will learn. They both help each other, and it's just great overall. We work on things. We work more on a lot of different techniques, and we just catch on those things, And Joey Gamache, he's very respectful. He lets my father do what he has to do. And if my father has anything to tell Joey to do, he'll do them. So it's just been good. It's been a great team, and I'm very excited.
Hey, we had your dad on a few weeks ago, and he said something that surprised us just a little bit. He told us that you don't particularly like Richard Commey. First of all, is that true? And secondly, how come, if that's true? I mean, he comes off in interviews like a pretty nice guy.
Nah, Richard Commey, I got nothing against him. Oh, no. My dad, if there's anybody I don't like, would be Lomachenko. Yeah, if there's anybody I don't like, would be Lomachenko. But overall, man, Richard Commey, we both know that we have to go in there, and put on a show. We make jokes at each other, but when it's all said and done, when we're in that square circle, and everything, it's all business. But somebody got to win, man, and that's what we're looking forward to. I can't wait. He's a heavy hitter. I'm a heavy hitter, but I'm a smart fighter. And it's just Brooklyn, man. So it's definitely going to be at Madison Square Garden. It's just great. Overall, it's going to be an amazing night of boxing, amazing night of sport. The same night as the Heisman Trophy ceremony is going on. It's just a beautiful way to finish 2019.
Cool. Yeah, you're a Brooklyn kid, and as Dennis said, Commey's living in Brooklyn now. Have you ever run into him like in the past few years, Teofimo? Guys, have your paths crossed?
Me and Commey, nah. We never ran it because I don't go to the Bronx.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me follow up with this really fast though, because you said you didn't like Lomachenko, and we all know how your dad feels about Lomachenko. Tell me why you don't like Lomachenko. Do you think he's arrogant? What is it about him you just don't like?
I don't know. It's just something about him. It's kind of like it makes me cringe in a way. I don't know. It makes me cringe about him. I don't know why, but it's just something about him. I don't know. My dad would say he's arrogant and things like that. For me, I just feel like he's a bitch. My bad. Sorry for my language. But I feel like he's a diva. It makes me cringe. Okay. It makes me cringe at how much of a diva he is. So it makes me cringe. It's like, yeah.
That's fine.
Well, you know what?
But
three guys.
Everybody has.
Go ahead.
Everybody has their opinion on everybody.
Yeah.
Some people think I'm arrogant and things, but they never get to meet me. And they never got to meet me. And then the moment they meet me, they say that I'm the most humblest dude out there. So. Mm-hmm. But I've met Lomachenko personally, and I just it makes me cringe. It just makes me cringe, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, man. You know, you come off as a great guy when we talk to you on this show. You tone it way back and stuff, and so Ali was that way too. He was a great guy when he wasn't putting on a big performance, and you to me are a Showtime guy. I mean, you understand that boxing is entertainment, and you want to be the most entertaining guy out there. So I think a hell of a lot of the arrogance that you try and show, like after a fight or in interviews or whatever, is just it's stick for you. It's just a show, isn't it?
Are you saying that I'm the next Muhammad Ali? No, I'm just messing with you.
Yeah.
Well,
I think you're a good guy. I think you're secretly a good guy.
It's all, lights, camera, actions, and everything like that. But, you have to do what you have to do. You have to find ways to entertain the industry. Everybody wants to see something out of either a fighter or just an athlete in general. So this is something that can't be taught. It has to be. It's just you have it or you don't. And the thing is with me is that this is who I am. I mean, obviously when I'm in the fight game and everything, it's a whole different fighter. You actually get to see Teofimo Lopez. I'll talk my smack. I'll back it up. Things like that. But I love what I do. I love to entertain, and that's the best thing about it. When I get in the ring, every time I fight, I try to do something to excite the fans in the best way I can. And that moment is the best feeling ever. I'm like you could say like an adrenaline junkie. The bigger the crowd, the more adrenaline I kick in, like for me, and I just start getting more hype.
Yeah, well, that's the difference between making a few $100,000. Making yourself a product. So, hey, three guys have gone the distance with you. The last one was your most recent opponent, Mayoshi Nakatani, who you beat by a unanimous decision in July. You were your own biggest critic after that fight. You were disappointed in your own performance. What did you feel like you should have done better that night?
I should have blocked out a couple things that fight, but it's a learning process. It's just from experience, you just learn from them. And you just take you take it back to the drawing board and you work on those things for the next time around. For this fight, we're definitely going to be more well prepared. Each and every fight we are prepared. It's just some hiccups that happened prior to the fight. But thank God I came out victorious that night. For me, I'm my worst critic always. But that's something that I should always keep to myself. And these are things that you learn. I'm 22 years old. We still coming up, and it was a great fight. Against a tremendous, tall, undefeated fighter. And I'm pretty sure down the road there's gonna be times like that. You gotta work through them, and that's what we're doing. We adapt.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you said you moved camp to Jersey from Vegas, and I couldn't help. I'm just curious or nosy. Pick your poison here. Why the change? Why Jersey, Teofimo? Can you tell me why you moved from Vegas to Jersey for this camp?
Different atmosphere. I felt like I wanted to change the atmosphere of where I was at. And on top of that, I already live in New York. I live in Brooklyn. So I wanted something closer to me. Instead of having that 5.5 or 5 hour flight, and doing camp there, after a while I just got a little annoyed or tired of it, and I just wanted to have like a different feel out. I wanted to start fresh again, feel something new, feel something different, something motivating me more, and that's what we did.
I see. Do you work? I'm just curious here. Do you work in a gym that's pretty quiet? Is it basically just you in there, or is there a bunch of guys working out with you while you're going through, sparring and working the bag and everything?
No, it's very. I wouldn't say it's quiet. I mean, there's a few people in there that do, the boxing and stuff, but it's not a gym that you would think that it's like, it'll be overpacked or anything like that. No, it's very. I like it. I like it a lot. And it's real nice. It's they have 3 rings. It's nice and big, and it's convenient for us, and it's convenient for me, and it feels great. Working with just working with different people and things like that, and just being around some, different people. They see me, they all get hyped. It's crazy how much motivation I bring out to people. People that are fighting still in the amateurs, and they're like, "Oh shoot, Teofimo, you here?" And it's crazy. Sometimes you tend to forget. You tend to forget like the accomplishments that you are doing and the goals that you're setting out for everybody else. Because they want to turn out to be like you, and that's motivation for me. Keeps me going.
Yeah, it must feel great.
Teofimo, you had some personal distractions last time, and we're not going to go into that. But also, you weren't all that happy with the way training camp went last time. What are you doing differently this time?
I'm thinking about myself. I ain't thinking about nothing else. This camp around and this fight around is for me. That's really it. It ain't about trying to please anybody else or do anything to make anybody else happy. I know what I need to do when I'm in there, and I know what makes me happy, and that's really what I'm doing. Taking all the negative away and just keeping positive keeping positivity all around me. Separate myself from all the negative and all the bad energy. And that's pretty much it. I know that at the end of the day, when I'm in that ring, it's only me and the other guy across. No matter if my coach or anybody is there, they'll tell me what I have to do, but it's up to me to either do it and execute them or not. And those are the things that I've come to terms with, and it's just, that's why I can't wait. This fight around is definitely going to be a lot different.
Interesting.
Yeah, you fight at 135. We're always curious about this. What's your walking around weight? And then after that, what do you eat when you're trimming down for a fight? Obviously, your diet is reduced, but what are you walking around at when you're not training, Teofimo?
Well, we try to be like the most 10 to 15 pounds, so that's the max. So we'll probably hit like 150 the most. This time around, I was at 52, 53, but not as big. I mean, a little bit bigger than what we expected, but I'm still growing, so I'm a big, I'm gonna be big, man. But as of right now, we've been good. Training camp, diet, everything's been going great. We've been training every day, and I just can't wait, man. I really can't. I just have so many mouths to. It's just so many. The satisfaction. The best thing about everything is revenge. I would say success is the greatest revenge. A lot of people, the commentators were downing me on my fight, such and such, and all these things, and I don't look into it as much. Unlike my father or anything else. But the best thing about it is when you succeed and you do the things that they didn't see you do, it's the best revenge because it's the greatest revenge, honestly, because that's how you kill people. You kill people with your success.
Yeah.
So you're a knockout artist, and so is Commey. All but 3 of his wins, and he's got 29 wins, are KOs. This seems like a fight where the guy who makes the first big mistake could lose. How confident are you going into this fight, and why?
I'm very confident, man. I mean, if I wasn't confident, I wouldn't have taken the fight. I take every fight, though. That's just me. I love a challenge, and that's the best thing about it. I'm a fighter. I mean, hey, you're going to get hit. And it's just how you're going to react when you do get hit. And Richard Commey is a hell of a fighter. He's a world champion for a reason. He's a 2-time world champion. And I can't wait, just to be in that ring with him is that alone, a big accomplishment. But then beating him and doing what I'm going to do December 14th is what's definitely going to make a mark and put a stamp in the boxing world that Teofimo Lopez is here to stay. And we're not going to beat somebody for a vacant. We're going to beat somebody that's world champion, and those are the things that set the difference on a fighter. Then that's where the eyes and everyone gets to see, the critics and everything, they get to see that, this guy is for real. And that's the best thing I love about it. I have the greatest opportunity right now to change everything, and I can't wait. I really can't. And what better way than to win my first world title at the Mecca of boxing, and that's Madison Square Garden.
Yep.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, he's had 2 losses, Teofimo. He lost back-to-back fights in 2016 to Robert Easter Jr. and Denis Shavkov, both by split decisions. Since then, he's 5-0. The last 4 by knockout. How much respect do you have for? He's got 26 knockouts, so you've got some respect, I'm sure, for Commey's power.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I got respect for all these guys I face, man, because you never know. One punch could change the whole fight. You can't. One punch could change a fight, no matter if this guy is a power puncher or if he wasn't. You never know. You know, just the right placement of a shot, you'll go down. It doesn't even have to be hard at times. You know, I've knocked guys down with a body shot, and I don't even hit them as hard. I just put them in the right spot, and they go down. So, you know, I know who I'm up against, and I know the type of fighter that Richard Commey is, but I am confident in myself, and that's the thing. I'm just so happy. I'm like, you know, a little kid going into a candy shop and just picking out any candy he wants. I don't know. I'm just happy, man. It's the best thing I love about it because I get to go out there. I get to go out there and do what I like to do, man. I love to do. And you know, Richard Commey is a hell of a fighter, man. Like I said, he's very powerful and everything. But man, when you have the ring IQ, the speed, the power, all those things, and you put them all together, it's unbeatable.
This is the Ringside Boxing Show from Monterey, California. I'm Dennis Taylor with John J. Raspanti. We are talking to one of the outstanding young fighters in the world right now, Teofimo Lopez Jr. Okay, so for all the guys listening to this show who are going to place a bet, what are the chances that this fight are going to go the distance?
Oh, this fight is definitely not going the distance. This fight is definitely not. This fight, and that's why they call this fight the main event. I mean, it's the co-main event. You know, and a lot of people are going to the fight. You know, and all due respect to Terrence Crawford. You know, he's a hell of a fighter. He's a pound-for-pound champion. You know, but a lot of people are more excited about this fight than his. You know, and the reason why is because this fight is not going the distance, and everybody knows that. It's either me or him. And December 14th, that's what we're working hard for. You know, so we come out victorious.
Yeah, so tell me, do you see some flaws in Commey's style there, Teofimo?
Just watch December 14th. Just watch December 14th. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Okay, so let me ask Dennis. Let me ask you. I wanted to ask you one thing that we skipped over real fast because you mentioned Madison Square Garden. You know, and any of us old farts like Dennis and me, you know, we've seen Madison Square Garden for years, and it's a legendary place, obviously a mecca. How does that feel? I have to ask you this. Explain how that feels walking to that ring and getting in there and fighting.
The thing is, it's unexplainable. It's something that you can't really. You're speechless the moment you go in. It's a whole different. The magnitude of it is just different. You know, I think honestly, it's the most beautiful thing ever. I mean, I fought in Vegas, I fought in Texas, I fought in Florida. I mean, nothing's like Madison Square Garden, and just to know, like, you know, how many great champions have fought there, how many fighters that I've looked up to fought there, and how many legendary fights have been there. It's remarkable, man. It's a blessing just that alone, just to sit there, just to be there, just to fight there. And you can ask anybody, man. It's something that's unexplainable, though. I could say for sure it's one of the most greatest feelings in the world.
I bet.
How does that feeling differ from Barclays for you? Barclays is your home, man. That's Brooklyn.
No, I know, definitely. You know, Brooklyn and everything, you know, they came out with the Barclays. But, you know, with Top Rank and everything they have their way of doing it with Madison Square Garden. You know, Barclays Center is for Al Heyman and for the PBC fighters. You know, for me, I've actually been to the Barclays. And I've been to the Barclays with when Sean Porter and Keith Thurman were fighting. And the atmosphere was crazy. The atmosphere was crazy. It was beautiful. I mean, you could just tell that these are boxing fans and they're just hyped. So, you know, one day definitely it's gonna be a point where, you know, we'll fight at the Barclays too. You know, but as of right now, you know, with Top Rank and ESPN, they have their thing with Madison Square Garden. And hey, I'm not complaining.
What's it like for you right now, walking down the street in Brooklyn, being Teofimo Lopez Jr.?
Ah, man,
the
it's
girls
nothing.
on the
It's
stoops
nothing.
and whatever.
I don't see myself that type of person. You know, I don't see myself like
They
this
do,
big
though.
superstar. You know, man, I'm just.
There's girls
hey,
sitting on the
when
stoop
I'm in the,
looking at you.
when I'm in the ring, when I'm in the ring, I'm the superstar, man. I'll be out there, and that's Teofimo. You know, outside of it though, man, I mean, you know, I have people stop me and here and there, but for me, it's just, you know, I'm just like anybody else.
A few days ago, Vasily Lomachenko mentioned you and Gervonta Davis and Devin Haney as the fighters he wants to fight in 2020. Your dad has said several times that Loma would be an easy fight for you. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. You know, my dad always tells me, and this is something this is obviously it's not going to be an easy fight as in like, oh, let me just walk in there and walk in the park, you know, but it's going to be a fight that is definitely going to be not like everybody thinks it will be, you know, not how everybody interprets it or predicts how it will be, which is, you know, Loma do his side-to-side and his combination and wins the fight. You know, those are not things that what he does to other fighters is not going to happen with us. Loma's a natural 126, 130 pounder. You know, it's a small guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a 35 going up to 140 because I've been at 135 for 7 years or 6 years already. You know, I'm a big guy. But the big size doesn't always matter. It's true. But we have the youth. We're hungry. We're hungrier. You know, he's on his way out. He's pro-injury. You know, he's pro-injured. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like he doesn't have enough left in his tank. You know, and we'll see what happens, man. Let's see if he accepts the fight afterwards with me and Richard Commey.
Yeah, a few months ago, Teofimo Lomachenko beat Luke Campbell. It was a good fight. What did you think of his performance in that fight?
I didn't watch. I didn't watch the fight. I didn't watch the fight. You know, but the WBC had their intentions on making Lomachenko their champion. You know, making him the WBC champion, and you know, I mean, Luke Campbell. You know, they said that he put a good fight. You know, and they went the distance and everything. You know, so I mean, hey, you know, I mean, Luke Campbell is no pushover.
Right.
You know, and hey, you know, on to the next. You know, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Your dad tells us that you sparred with Luke Campbell a while back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, me and Luke Campbell sparred about like 6 times. Yeah, we sparred about like 6 times or something like that. And then majority, not all the time, but like a few of them were because when he was fighting Jorge Leonardes, they had me in there for camp. Yeah, it was great work, man, you know. Luke Campbell's a tough fighter, you know, strong southpaw. You know, and yeah, man, I learned a lot from him too.
Okay, how do you think you match up against Gervonta Davis and Devin Haney, a couple of also young guys?
I match up perfectly. I match up perfectly.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, man. It'll be when those fights happen, you know, definitely, man. That's like a early Christmas gift for the boxing fans. So, you know, sooner or later those fights will happen. Eventually, hopefully, you know, and then we go from there.
Yeah. Gervonta fights Yorkas Gambo on December 28th. What do you see happening in that fight?
Same thing they did with Loma and Luke Campbell. They wanted WBC. They wanted him to be champion. They're going to try to find a way to make Gervonta Davis, you know, become world champion of some sort. And they're just doing the WBA regular champion and all those things. You know, these body sanctions, man, they make me laugh. They make me laugh. But I see Tank, you know, he has it's a test run for him. You know, it looks good on record. It looks good on his resume. You know, fighting Gamboa. Gamboa was a hell of a fighter. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I would love to stay and talk to you guys constantly. I'm actually have to go to the gym. I'm here right now.
Okay.
I gotta get back into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I'm gonna make one prediction here, and that's that if you beat Commey, and I think you probably will, if you beat Commey on Heisman Trophy night, I'm gonna make a prediction, John, that he does the Heisman trophy stance in the ring afterwards. That's what I think his stick's gonna be. Not the home run swing, not the.
Hey man, who's been giving you my playbook? Who's been giving you my playbook?
That home run swing was a class.
Always great talking to you, and have a great workout. Best of luck against Commey, my friend.
You bet. Best of luck.
Likewise. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it, and yeah, man, the takeover.
You bet. Take care.
Teofimo Lopez Jr., the takeover, is planning on taking the IBF Lightweight Championship of the World from Richard Commey on December 14th at Madison Square Garden, the mecca of boxing. Boxing fans can expect an electrifying fight because neither of these guys are planning to stick and move that night. It's going to be a slugfest. Always great talking to you. Stay healthy in training camp, and give us a show to remember, buddy. Best wishes to you.
That has a nice ring to it. IBF World Champion. Ooh, that has a nice ring to it.
Good luck.
All right, guys. You guys have a good one. Have a good night.
You too. Teofimo Lopez Jr., everybody. Hey, do you like this show? Do us a solid. Tell other boxing fans about our podcast. Post the Ringside Boxing Show on your social media sites and help us grow. John and I also want to remind you that we wrote an Amazon bestseller called Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy. It's received a rating of almost 5 stars in reader reviews, and we're pretty proud of that. And John has a brand new book out called Blood on My Notebook, and you can find that one on Amazon. And that's getting good reviews already, too. We want to thank our expert analyst, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and my partner, John J. Raspanti, our British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin, and another huge thanks to today's featured guest, undefeated lightweight contender, Teofimo Lopez Jr., one of the most exciting young fighters in the sport. And, of course, we appreciate you, Ringside Nation, for being a part of our worldwide audience again today. Keep your chin tucked, and we'll talk to you again next week on the Ringside Boxing Show.
Well, it's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass. It's a bad day, so you better get off of my back. You might get cold cocked if you cross my path. 'Cause it's a great